The Galactic Concordat's Grand Chamber hadn't seen such tension in over 3 centuries. The massive crystalline dome, designed to house representatives from over 1,000 species, was unusually still as Dr. Amanda Mitchell's holographic form materialized at the central podium. She took a moment to study the assembled aliens, her training as a xenobiologist already noting dozens of species she'd only theorized about. The towering crystalline forms of the Xith'tol swayed gently in their atmospheric chambers. The methane-breathing Kurt clustered in their pressurized pods, their multiple eyes blinking in synchronized patterns of distrust. Distinguished representatives, Amanda's voice carried through the chamber's universal translators, each species hearing her words in their native tongue. I stand before you not as a supplicant, but as a warning. The Kraxon War Council's section erupted in chittering laughter, their blade-like appendages clicking against their ceremonial armor. High Commander Zexkar raised a serrated limb, his translator converting his vibrations into speech. The primitive speaks of warnings. His tone dripped with disdain. Your species still burns fossil fuels. Your ships haven't left your own system. You split atoms and think yourselves advanced. Amanda's lips curved into what her species called a smile, but her eyes remained cold. You're right about one thing, Commander. We are primitive. We had to be. She gestured, and the chamber's holographic display filled with images. Your archaeological records show 17 species that achieved spaceflight from what you call garden worlds. Planets with stable climates, predictable weather, and manageable wildlife. The images shifted to Earth. Hurricanes tearing through cities, volcanoes erupting, earthquakes reshaping continents. What your records don't show are the 100 other species that evolved on worlds like ours. Do you know why? Representative Zixtal, silent until now, leaned forward in their crystalline throne. Their species had the longest memory in the Concordat, and something about the humans' words stirred ancient warnings. They're not in our records, Amanda continued, because they're extinct. Their worlds killed them before they could reach the stars. But we survived. Her hologram walked through the display, each step highlighting a different Earth species. We survived the ice ages. We survived super predators. We survived microorganisms that would dissolve your species in hours. Is this meant to impress us? Zexkar interrupted. Your survival means nothing. Our fleet stands ready to pacify your world. Your primitive weapons can it. We don't have primitive weapons, Amanda cut him off. Something no one had dared do in the chamber for generations. We have weapons designed to kill things that evolved on Earth. Do you understand what that means? The chamber grew silent as she continued. Every weapon, every defense, every strategy we've developed was created to fight things that survived the same hell world we did. Your species evolved to fight wars. We evolved to win them. She turned to face the entire chamber now. Your scans show our technology level. They show our military capabilities, but they don't show the graveyard of species that tried to colonize Earth throughout our history. They don't show why we're the only survivors on a world that should have killed us millions of years ago. Representative Zixtal's crystalline form vibrated in what their species knew as fear. Their ancestral memories, passed down through generations, carried whispers of a world their ancestors had found, a world they'd attempted to colonize, a world that had destroyed their most advanced expedition. The attack fleet has already launched, Zexkar announced triumphantly. Your warnings come too late. Amanda's smile widened, and for the first time, the chamber saw what a human predator's expression truly meant. No, Commander. Your fleet launched too early. We weren't trapped on Earth. Earth was containing us. And now, she looked around the chamber one last time. Now you've given us a reason to leave. Her hologram flickered out, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Only Representative Zixtal understood the true meaning of her words. Their species had encountered Earth 10,000 years ago. They had never gone back. Admiral James Cooper stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the North American Defense Force Command Center, his reflection ghosting against the dawn sky. The steaming cup of black coffee in his hand, real coffee, not the synthetic stuff, might be his last for a while. He intended to savor it. "Sir," Lieutenant Jessica Hayes called from her station, "Craxon fleet has crossed the Kuiper Belt boundary. 87 capital ships, over 300 support vessels." Cooper took another sip, the bitter liquid grounding him in the moment. "And our friends in low orbit. All stations report ready, sir. Operation Windchime is armed and tracking." The Admiral allowed himself a small smile. The Craxon would be expecting panic, chaos, perhaps a few desperate missile launches. That's what their intelligence suggested humanity would do. After all, they'd been watching Earth's news broadcasts, monitoring their social media, intercepting their military communications. All carefully crafted fiction. "Update from Luna Base," another officer called out. "Chinese and European defense forces report full alignment. The Russians have confirmed their sectors are green." Cooper turned from the window, taking in the massive command center. Hundreds of officers worked at their stations with calm precision. No panic, no fear. This wasn't their first rodeo with alien contact, just the first time they'd let the aliens know they'd been detected. "Message from the Craxon fleet," Hayes announced. "They're demanding our immediate surrender. Standard first contact package. Submit or be pacified." "How thoughtful of them to make the trip," Cooper mused, setting down his now empty cup. "Lieutenant, please inform all commands. Operation Windchime is go. Authorization code Cooper 77 Alpha Sunrise." Around the Earth, in seemingly random orbits, thousands of satellites began to wake up. To the Craxon sensors, they appeared to be simple communication relays, weather monitors, and the occasional primitive spy satellite. The perfect backdrop for a pre-FTL civilization. The perfect lie. "Craxon fleet has passed Mars orbit," Hayes reported. "They're maintaining attack formation. Leading elements will enter optimal weapons range in 17 minutes." Cooper opened a secure channel to the Joint Chiefs. "Ladies and gentlemen, I trust you're all comfortable." Various affirmatives came back. Each of Earth's military leaders had been evacuated to hardened bunkers weeks ago, not out of fear, but to maintain command continuity for what was coming. "Sir," Hayes's voice carried an edge of anticipation. "Craxon ships are launching what appear to be atmospheric insertion vessels. They're targeting major population centers." "Right on schedule," Cooper nodded. "Send the stand-down code to all conventional forces. Let's not spoil the surprise." Across the globe, military bases went dark. Fighter jets stayed grounded. Missile silos remained closed. To the approaching Craxon fleet, it must have looked like paralysis, like terror. "Craxon command ship is broadcasting," Hayes reported. "They're laughing at us, sir." "Can't blame them." Cooper checked his watch. "From their perspective, we must look pretty pathetic. Lieutenant, patch me through to all commands, please." The channel opened with a soft chime. Cooper's voice was steady as he addressed the defenders of Earth. "Ladies and gentlemen, in about 2 minutes, the Craxon fleet will enter what they consider optimal strike range. They expect us to either submit or launch everything we have in a desperate last stand." He paused, looking at the tactical display where thousands of dormant satellites were about to show their true purpose. "Let's show them why humanity doesn't need to bluff." The first Craxon ships hit the outer defense sphere at full speed, their sensors detecting nothing but communication satellites and space debris. Their shields, designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, were calibrated for military threats. They weren't prepared for what happened next. "Windchime is live," Hayes announced, her voice carrying the pride of years of preparation. "All sectors reporting successful activation. Cooper watched as the first wave of Craxon ships suddenly stopped, their engines flaring in confusion as thousands of seemingly dead satellites released their payloads. Not weapons, not by any military definition. Just simple carbon strands, each thinner than a human hair, each carrying a fraction of Earth's most potent gift to the universe: the ability to adapt even the simplest things into a weapon. "Now," Cooper said softly, "let's show them what primitive really means." Lieutenant Emily Winters watched the battle unfold from her station deep within Luna Base, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls as she fine-tuned Operation Papercut's second phase. The massive screens before her showed thousands of Craxon ships struggling against the invisible web that Earth had spent decades weaving in space. "Status update on carbon dispersal," Colonel Sarah Richardson asked, her voice steadied despite the stakes. "Pattern is holding, Mom," Emily responded, zooming in on a Craxon destroyer that was attempting to burn through the cloud of microscopic threads with its engines. "They're doing exactly what we predicted, trying to blast their way through. Each maneuver just spreads the strands further into their systems." The colonel nodded, her expression grim but satisfied. "How long until their life support starts failing?" "First signs should be appearing right about." Emily checked her readings. Now. Across the void of space, alarms began blaring through the Craxon fleet. Their advanced air filtration systems, designed to handle everything from chemical weapons to biological agents, were encountering something they'd never been programmed to fight. Simple, non-reactive carbon fibers, each strand thinner than a spider's web, each one multiplying the damage as the ship's own air circulation spread them further. "Message from Admiral Cooper," another officer called out. "Operation Papercut Phase 2 is authorized. Releasing the Ghost Fleet." Emily's hands moved in a complex pattern, activating systems that had lain dormant for years. What the Craxon had dismissed as debris fields around Earth's orbital lanes suddenly came alive. Hundreds of small, unmanned vessels, their surfaces coated in light-absorbing materials, powered up their ion engines. "Ghost Fleet reports ready," Emily announced. "All units show green for autonomous operation." The colonel leaned forward, studying the tactical display. "Begin the dance." The ghost ships moved with eerie precision, their trajectories calculated years in advance. Each one carried additional payloads of the carbon fiber strands, but more importantly, each one was a perfect target, too small to ignore, too threatening to leave alone. "Craxon fleet is responding," Emily reported, a note of satisfaction in her voice. "They're breaking formation to engage the ghost ships, exactly as predicted." On the main screen, the alien fleet's elegant battle formation dissolved as ships peeled off to chase the elusive targets. Each ghost ship led its pursuers through pre-planned routes, spreading the carbon cloud wider, drawing more ships into the trap. "First confirmed life support failure," Emily called out. "Craxon destroyer in Sector 7 has lost primary and secondary filtration. They're switching to emergency systems, but..." She paused, checking the data. "The emergency systems are drawing in more strands through the backup intakes." Colonel Richardson allowed herself a small smile. How long did their engineers spend designing those triple redundant systems? All that technology, all that advancement, defeated by something so simple it didn't even register as a weapon. "Ma'am," Emily's voice carried a note of concern, "we're detecting power spikes in several Craxon ships. They might be preparing tow." The space around Earth lit up as dozens of Craxon vessels fired their main weapons, attempting to clear paths through the nearly invisible cloud that was slowly killing them. The energy beams, powerful enough to crack a planet's crust, did nothing to the carbon strands. They were too small, too simple to be affected. "They're panicking," the colonel observed. "Good. That means Phase 3 can begin." She opened a channel to Admiral Cooper's command center. "Sir, Luna Base reporting. The Ghost Fleet has achieved primary objectives. Request permission to begin Operation Lazarus Protocol. Emily's hands hovered over her controls, waiting for the order that would reveal Earth's next surprise. The Craxon had come expecting to find a primitive species still learning to leave their planet. Instead, they were learning why humanity's primitive technology was more dangerous than any advanced weapon system. Because sometimes the simplest solutions were the most lethal. Permission granted. Cooper's voice came through clear and confident. Show them why we call it the Lazarus Protocol. Emily's fingers began their dance again, and in the darkness of space, the real trap began to close. Marine Colonel Marcus Rodriguez crouched in the dense undergrowth of the Amazon defense zone, the humid air thick with the sounds of life. His combat suit, painted with patterns that mimicked the local flora, was already streaked with mud and plant matter. Exactly as intended. Hostile forces have breached the outer marker, Lieutenant David Nash whispered through the tactical net. 300 plus, moving in standard search pattern. They're using sonic pulses to map the terrain. Rodriguez smiled behind his camouflaged faceplate. The Craxon were following their military doctrine perfectly, trying to impose order on one of the most chaotic battlefields Earth had to offer. All units, remember your training. Rodriguez broadcast to his hidden forces. Let the jungle do the work. We're just here to guide our guests to their accommodations. A chorus of acknowledgments came back, each one nearly silent. His Marines had trained for years in this environment, learning not just to survive in it, but to make it an extension of their arsenal. The first signs of the Craxon appeared through the dense foliage. Towering figures in sealed environmental suits, their weapons sweeping back and forth as they advanced. Their formation was perfect, their technology advanced beyond anything Earth could field openly. None of that would save them. Contact front. A Craxon scout called out, firing a burst of energy that vaporized a section of jungle, and a holographic projector creating the image of a human soldier. Decoys working, Nash reported. They're taking the bait. The alien force surged forward, pursuing what they thought was a retreating human squad. Their sensors, designed to detect energy weapons and power sources, were useless against the passive camouflage and biological defenses the Marines had prepared. Phase 1 complete, Rodriguez confirmed as the last Craxon passed his position. Begin Operation Ecosystem. Throughout the jungle, hidden devices activated. Not weapons, simply small ultrasonic emitters, each one tuned to a specific frequency. To the Craxon, they were barely detectable. To the jungle's indigenous life, they were a dinner bell. The first screams started moments later. Sir, Nash's voice held a note of professional satisfaction. Bullet ants are responding to the stimuli. Swarms are converging on multiple Craxon units. Rodriguez watched through his enhanced vision as the aliens' perfect formation began to break. Their environmental suits, designed to stop everything from radiation to chemical weapons, were being compromised by creatures smaller than their sensors were calibrated to detect. Activate the fungal zones, he ordered. Across the battlefield, carefully cultivated patches of modified fungi released their spores. The microscopic particles, each one carrying a fraction of Earth's evolutionary arms race, found every microscopic flaw in the Craxon armor. Multiple hostiles breaking formation, Nash reported. Their command structure is, Sir, you need to see this. Rodriguez's display shifted, showing a Craxon commander firing wildly at the canopy above. The alien's powerful energy weapon cut through the trees and disturbed the nest of Paraponera clavata he'd been trying to avoid. Should we engage? Nash asked as more Craxon units began to fire randomly, their discipline crumbling as Earth's ecosystem launched its counterattack. Negative, Rodriguez replied, watching as the alien force began to fragment. Let them learn why we call this place a defense zone. Signal. The next phase: drive them toward Sector 7. His Marines began their true work, using minimal force to herd the panicking aliens toward what looked like an escape route. None of the Kraxon realized they were being guided into a valley where the air itself was filled with microscopic defenders. Billions of years of evolution refined into the perfect weapon. "Sir," Nash called out, "we're getting reports from other defense zones. The Kraxon are attempting full orbital strikes to clear landing zones." Rodriguez nodded, unsurprised. "Let them waste the energy. You can't burn away an ecosystem that survived multiple extinction events." Signal command: "Tell them the ground war is proceeding exactly as planned." Above them, a Kraxon ship attempted to vaporize a section of rainforest. The energy blast created a massive crater, which immediately began to fill with life again. Each organism adapted to exploit any available space, just as humanity had adapted to exploit any available advantage. Director Catherine Walsh stood in the Centers for Disease Control's Omega-level laboratory, her eyes fixed on the massive display showing the Kraxon fleet's biological weapon launch preparations. Behind her, teams of scientists worked with calm efficiency, their movements practiced and precise. "They're really going to do it," Dr. Robert Anderson said, coming to stand beside her. His dark eyes reflected the scrolling data. "After everything we've shown them, they still think we're vulnerable to their bioweapons." Catherine's lips curved into a slight smile. "To be fair, we did work very hard to make them think that." She tapped her neural interface, bringing up the Global Defense Network's status. "How are our volunteers doing?" "Better than expected," Robert replied, pulling up medical telemetry from around the globe. "The enhanced immune response is holding steady. Even the early generation adaptations are performing above baseline." On the screens, red dots indicated Kraxon ships moving into position for a global dispersal pattern. They were following standard military doctrine for subduing a pre-FTL civilization. First technological superiority, then biological warfare when the target proved stubborn. "Status update from the Orbital Defense Network," a young analyst called out. "They're loading what appears to be their primary viral package, similar to what they used on the Centauri colonies." Catherine nodded, remembering the intelligence reports. "The same package that wiped out 3 civilizations." She opened a channel to the Joint Chiefs. "Operation Immunity is go. I repeat, Operation Immunity is active. Around the globe, hidden facilities powered up. Not missile silos or weapon platforms, but something far more potent. The results of centuries of human medical development, accelerated by the secret knowledge that they weren't alone in the universe." "First wave incoming," Robert announced as the Kraxon ships released their payload. Clouds of engineered pathogens, each one designed to target specific biological systems, began descending through Earth's atmosphere. Catherine keyed her commands into the global network. "Release the countermeasures. All zones, full spectrum response. From cities and forests, deserts and mountains, microscopic defenders rose to meet the alien attack. Not weapons, but human immune cells, enhanced through generations of careful engineering, carried on the wind and in the rain." "Ma'am," one of the technicians called out, "the Kraxon are detecting the response. They're confused." "I imagine they are," Catherine said, watching as the alien bioweapons met something they'd never been designed to fight. Immune systems that had evolved on a world where every breath could contain a new pathogen. Every cut could lead to infection. Every moment was part of an endless arms race between predator and prey. Robert's display showed the results in real time. "Their primary vector is breaking down. Our enhanced macrophages are. They're not just defeating the pathogens, they're adapting to them." "Of course they are," Catherine replied. "That's what we do. We adapt." She turned to address her team. "Ladies and gentlemen, Would you like to see why we let them think our nuclear arsenal was our ultimate weapon? The main screen shifted to show a global view. The Kraxon's biological attack, visible as a red haze to their sensors, was being systematically dismantled, not by technology, but by the enhanced human immune response, the result of millions of years of evolution on a world that had been trying to kill them since before they walked upright. Signal from the Kraxon command ship. An analyst reported. They're demanding to know what weapons we're using. Catherine opened a channel to respond. Her voice, when it came, carried the weight of human history's longest war, the battle against their own world's microscopic defenders. No weapons, she transmitted, just adaptation. You see, while you were building ships to cross the stars, we were building something far more valuable. The ability to survive anything our world could throw at us. And our world, as you're learning, is far more creative than your weapon designers. On the display, the last of the Kraxon's biological attack dissipated, broken down by immune systems that had been honed against far deadlier threats. Now, Catherine added, would you like to see what happens when we stop playing defense? Captain Michael O'Brien watched the tactical display from the bridge of the EDS Maelstrom as Earth's obsolete fleet moved into position. His ship, like all of humanity's space force, had been built with one primary design philosophy: survive the impossible. Kraxon command ship is broadcasting again. Lieutenant Anna Chen reported from her communication station. They're demanding our surrender, calling our ships primitive death traps. Death traps, O'Brien mused, running his hand along the reinforced command chair. They're not entirely wrong about that part. Status of the fleet. All ships report ready, Captain. Commander Jack Torres responded from tactical. Relativistic compensation systems are green. Impact cushioning at maximum. Medical bays are prepped for high-G maneuvers. O'Brien nodded, his eyes fixed on the elegant Kraxon vessels ahead of them. Their ships were beautiful, sleek, and powered by energy systems that made Earth's nuclear drives look like steam engines. They were also completely unprepared for what was coming. Open fleet-wide channel, O'Brien ordered. When Chen nodded, he addressed his forces. This is Captain O'Brien. By now, the Kraxon have seen our ship's specifications. They know our power output, our weapon systems, our shield strength. Everything their scans tell them says, we're no match for their technology. He paused, watching as the enemy fleet arranged itself in a perfect combat formation. What they don't know is why we built our ships this way. Initiative is authorized. Show them what the primitive death traps can do. The Earth fleet accelerated, but not in any formation the Kraxon would recognize. Each ship moved independently, their trajectories looking random, almost chaotic. Enemy fleet is responding, Torres reported. They're launching fighter screens, preparing energy weapons. They still think we're going to try to fight them ship to ship. O'Brien's smile was grim. Let's educate them. Signal the Maelstrom Squadron. Begin the dance. The first wave of Earth ships met the Kraxon fighter screen head-on. The alien pilots, expecting a traditional space battle, fired their energy weapons. Hits that should have crippled the human vessels barely scored their hulls. They're realizing something's wrong, Chen called out. Their tactical network is lighting up with confusion. Of course it is, O'Brien said. They built their ships to win battles. We built ours to survive relativistic impacts, initiate collision protocols. The bridge crew secured themselves as the Maelstrom's systems shifted into their true combat mode. The ship's entire structure, designed through centuries of learning how to navigate near light speed, prepared for forces that would tear apart any normal vessel. The first impact demonstrated why. A human destroyer, its hull barely damaged by enemy fire, slammed directly into a Kraxon cruiser. The alien vessel's shields, designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, did nothing against thousands of tons of reinforced hull moving at terrible velocity. Multiple confirmed kills, Torres reported, his voice professional despite the chaos unfolding on his screens. The Kraxon are trying to adjust their shield configurations, but they can't compensate fast enough. O'Brien opened a channel to the enemy fleet. You wondered why our ships seemed so primitive. It's because we built them to survive things far worse than your weapons. We had to. We were planning to cross the stars without your fancy FTL drives. The Maelstrom shuddered as its point defense systems swatted away Kraxon missiles like insects. On the main screen, another Earth ship demonstrated the superiority of simple physics over advanced technology, its reinforced prow crushing through an enemy vessel's engine section. Their formation is breaking, Chen announced. They're retreating. Not yet. They're not, O'Brien said. Signal all ships. Execute Operation Ramming Speed. Let's show them why humanity's primitive technology is the most dangerous thing they've ever encountered. As the Earth fleet moved to engage, O'Brien reflected on the irony. The Kraxon had come looking for an easy conquest, only to find something their advanced technology had never prepared them for. A species that had built their ships to survive the ultimate collision, the day they'd finally rammed their way to the stars. Dr. Thomas Bennett stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Concordat, his hologram projecting with perfect clarity thanks to technology that shouldn't have existed on Earth. The chamber was silent, every representative transfixed by the images he was sharing. These artifacts were found in the Gobi Desert, he said, rotating a three-dimensional scan of what was clearly an alien navigation system, carbon dated to roughly 12,000 years ago. Note the blast damage. Consistent with what we now know to be standard Kraxon energy weapons. The Kraxon War Council shifted uncomfortably. Their own historical records showed no such expedition. And this, Thomas continued, bringing up another image, was recovered from the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. An entire scout ship, its design matching perfectly with the Xithtul fleet of the Third Expansion era. He nodded to the crystalline beings, who vibrated in what might have been recognition. But that's impossible. A Xithtul representative chimed. Our records show that fleet was lost to a space anomaly. No, Thomas corrected gently. Your fleet found Earth, and Earth found them. He gestured, and the display filled with more images, crash sites, recovered technology, and archaeological evidence spanning millennia. 7 major expeditions, he continued, all of them documented in our secret archives. All of them defeated not by our technology, but by our planet itself. You see, Earth wasn't just our cradle. It was our training ground. The display shifted to show ancient cave paintings, but unlike any the Concordat had seen before. These showed primitive humans taking down beings in environmental suits, using nothing but stone tools and perfect knowledge of their world's deadliest elements. We knew we weren't alone, Thomas explained. We'd always known, but we also knew we weren't ready. So we waited, we learned, and most importantly, we adapted. He brought up modern medical scans of human beings, highlighting systems that made the alien scientists lean forward in surprise. Every time you visited, we collected more data. Every crashed ship, every failed invasion. They all taught us something about what waited among the stars. But your cities, another representative interrupted. Your open communications, your primitive technology. Thomas smiled. All part of the quarantine protocol. We didn't want to keep ourselves safe from you. We were keeping you safe from us. Until we were ready. Until we were sure we could enter the galactic community without accidentally destroying it. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs as he brought up the final display. A complete map of every alien expedition to Earth, dating back over 20,000 years, each one marked with the same result. Complete loss of contact. Your recent attack fleet, Thomas said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, wasn't the first to discover why Earth's biosphere is considered a death world. It was just the first to survive long enough to report back. He turned to face the Craxon War Council directly. "We've been preparing for interstellar war since before we invented the wheel. Not because we wanted it, but because we knew it would find us eventually. Every technology we've developed, every adaptation we've made, they were all designed to ensure we'd be ready when that day came." The display showed one final image, real-time footage of Earth's ships salvaging Craxon technology, their crews already adapting and improving upon designs that had taken other species centuries to perfect. "We weren't trapped on Earth," Thomas concluded. "We were containing ourselves, learning, growing, making sure that when we finally reached the stars, we'd be ready for anything they could throw at us. And now, thanks to your failed invasion, we've learned everything we need to know about FTL technology." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each species' representatives. "The quarantine wasn't to keep you out. It was to give us time to make sure we could join you without breaking everything you've built. That time, thanks to the Craxon Empire's actions, has now come to an end." Representative Zixtal's crystalline form caught the light as they rose from their ancient seat in the Concordat chamber. The assembly had been in session for 3 full cycles now, processing the implications of what they'd witnessed. The defeat of the Craxon fleet was no longer the primary concern. It was what came next. Honored members of the Concordat, their voice resonated through the chamber. 10,000 years ago, my species made first contact with Earth. We were different then, more like the Craxon, more certain of our superiority. The chamber's main display showed real-time footage from Earth's orbital shipyards. The humans weren't bothering to hide anymore. Captured Craxon ships were being systematically studied, their FTL drives already being adapted to human designs. "We lost 3 expedition fleets before we understood," Zixtal continued. "It wasn't that we couldn't defeat their weapons. It was that everything on their world was a weapon. The air, the water, the microscopic life forms that made up their biosphere, even the humans themselves. Every part of them evolved to survive things that would kill most sentient species." Admiral Cooper's face appeared on a secondary screen, his expression calm as he oversaw the integration of alien technology into Earth's defense grid. Beside him, Director Walsh was already implementing improvements to the captured bioweapons, while Colonel Rodriguez's teams adapted Craxon combat suits to work in Earth's deadly ecosystems. "We made a choice then," Zixtal said. "We erased our failed expeditions from our records, and we left a warning for future generations. Leave Earth alone. Let them develop at their own pace, because if we force them to join the galactic community too soon." The display shifted to show the first human FTL ship under construction. Its design was unlike anything in the Concordat's database, a hybrid of multiple technologies, all adapted to human specifications, all improved upon in ways that made the alien engineers watching the footage shift uncomfortably. "But the Craxon ignored our warning." Zixtal's tone carried ancient regret. "And now we face what we feared. Humanity has been given a reason to reach the stars centuries before they were ready, before we were ready for them." Dr. Bennett's hologram appeared next to them, a courtesy between equals now. "You misunderstand, Representative. We've been ready. We've been ready for millennia. We just needed to be sure you were ready for us." The chamber's attention shifted to a new display, Earth's internet going dark, its fake transmission ceasing, revealing the true face of human civilization. Gone was the chaotic, divided world that had been presented to the galaxy. In its place stood a united species that had been preparing for this moment since they first looked up at the stars and understood they weren't alone. "The quarantine was never about containing us," Bennett explained. "It was about protection. Yours, not ours. We needed to be certain that when we finally joined the galactic community, we wouldn't accidentally destroy it through simple biological contamination. That our adaptations, our survivability, our way of thinking wouldn't unbalance everything you've built. Zixtal's crystalline form resonated with understanding. And now, Bennett smiled. Now the Cracksun have given us everything we needed to safely cross the stars. Their shields can be modified to contain our biosphere. Their medical technology can be adapted to protect other species from our natural defenses. They've handed us the keys to the galaxy, thinking they were breaking down our door. The final display showed Earth's first FTL ship powering up its engines, ready for its test flight, humanity's first official step into the galactic community. Not as conquerors or victims, but as something far more interesting, survivors who had turned an entire death world into their strength. My fellow representatives, Zixtal addressed the chamber one last time. We are now all faced with the same question. How do we welcome a species that has turned evolution itself into a weapon? That has made Death World adaptation into an art form. That has been preparing for this moment. Since before most of our species achieved spaceflight, they paused, their crystalline form catching the light in a way that seemed almost like a human smile. We welcome them as equals, because they've already proven they're ready to join us. The real question is, are we ready for them?